Do you feel, I guess this is for both of you, like, do you feel like your self-worth and your perception of not only like who you are as an artist, but sort of like what your art is supposed to mean to people in general? Do you feel that changed like drastically because of everything last year?
I feel for me, it sort of just like zoomed into what I was already feeling. It's like if I was ever doubtful about my direction and the message and my voice in music before, I felt like in a way it did sort of like spotlight like all of the things that I was unsure about. It's like, okay, this is what you're supposed to be doing, and this is who you are, and this is what you're already saying. So it sort of did sort of like s- give me more insight into what I'm supposed to be doing and what I should be focusing on in a way.
It's
Mm,
like a reiteration of like what was
Yeah,
already inside of you.
yeah.
Mm.
yeah,
Well, you,
yeah.
Mark.
Yeah, I mean, my definition of like identity, I think there's a little bit of like what you call that, a challenging of the ego that happened to me the past year, where
Oh,
I mean, the past maybe 6 or 7 years when I started doing music professionally, a lot of my identity has been attached to the music and my work, and how people like my work, or if they approve of my work. For a long time, I've based my my artist identity and also like some of my self-worth in that. And I think
Hmm.
I guess starting from 2019 to 2020 is when I feel like that's being challenged, like especially when I don't know the reason, but there's probably less people listening. There's less opportunities, and I took that as like, oh, oh man, that I feel bad. Like, am I doing anything wrong? Um, and so yeah, definitely something that I thought about a lot and reflected on. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, I'm still processing that. I'm still processing that. Yeah. What about you, Faye?
That's interesting to
Mm,
hear.
go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. It's like I always looked at both of you as people that aren't phased by those things. But so it's nice to hear also that you also sort of relate, because I do feel those feelings about my music. It's like, oh, if there's no engagement or if the numbers don't sort of reflect something because of how the current music game or music system sort of encourages or drives us towards looking towards numbers, or in actuality sometimes it's about the super fans or the people who actually stick around for the long run, right?
Yeah.
But we're always sort of programmed in this way of thinking about like, oh, if you're not meeting these numbers, if you're not raking in the streaming money,
Mm-hmm.
you're not doing well.
Yeah.
But in actuality, I feel like, come just me personally speaking, I feel like you both are doing so well in what you do, and I sometimes also forget about the things that I'm doing just because I'm focusing on this sort of like idea that's planted in our heads about the gauge of success in
Yeah.
music.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's it's relieving to hear you say that too, and it's funny you say that like in terms of being surprised that both of us feel that way because I'm always surprised when I hear like someone such as yourself feel that way too, or Mark, or like with Omni's chat last time, being able to
Mm-hmm.
relate to Mark and I were talking about this, like taking criticism to heart and taking a lot of these other things to heart that I feel maybe a lot of times people say, oh, well, if the numbers aren't there, then, just be happy you made it or be proud of yourself still, or like, oh, that person doesn't matter if like they said something bad. But sometimes you kind of, can't have your
Yeah.
guard completely on there, and you get a little sensitive about it sometimes.
True.
I think that's something that's like good to talk about, especially since I feel artists are emotionally investing in themselves even more than ever before online, and really having to exert a lot of feelings. So when we sort of get a different energy back, it can shake things up a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's vulnerable, right? It is. It is.
Yeah.
You're here's a piece of music, a piece of art that you spend so much time in. Either like intentionally thinking about it or actually making it, and then sharing it to everyone. Yeah, it is vulnerable. It's always a vulnerable experience for me, from releasing music to actually playing a show. I always get really like nervous. My hands would be like just so cold, and yeah, I just feel vulnerable. Like, you're up there just by yourself doing your thing. And it's the same way too when you're releasing music. You're up there on stage, and people could just readily throw tomato at you.